record. Good afternoon. I'm Jen Bonnett. I'm the Executive Director of the Creative Coast here in Savannah, Georgia. And as many of you already know, we've been doing lunchtime topics at least once a week since the start of COVID-19 via Zoom, and focused on kind of the intersection of tech and creatives and entrepreneurship. Today, I'm going to be talking about social media automation specifically. So we're going to talk a little bit about social media, in general, and then we're going to try and spend most of our time talking about how do you think about making, how to create an authentic feeling social media presence while still using automation. And that's part of the key for me is it's not worth automating if it's not going to be authentic. So I am the teacher today. A little bit about me. I am a recovering entrepreneur, which means that instead of pursuing my own entrepreneurial journey at the moment, I am helping other people pursue theirs through my role at the Creative Coast and with CETA. I've founded 7 companies. I've raised over $52 million in angel and venture capital over 3 different companies. I've had 3 successful exits. And I relocated from Atlanta to Savannah 2 years ago with the mission of really kind of catalyzing a tech startup community in the Savannah region. My goal is small but vibrant, that allows creates essentially a new industry of focus for the Savannah region, creates lots of high-wage jobs in Savannah, and allows our SCAD kids and our Georgia Southern Savannah State kids to stay in town and have a high-wage, high-growth career opportunity right here in town. And that's my mission. That's a picture is actually me in People magazine circa 2001. So I'd love to start out and ask people to unmute themselves and tell me a little bit about who you are. Are you interested in social media for yourself or for a company? How active are you today? What is your preferred channel? And really just so I can kind of tailor my talk a little bit to what it is that you all are hoping to gain from this. So Kimberly, why don't you go first?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kimberly Jones. I'm the founder and creative director of Jones House, a branding and digital marketing company based in Atlanta. I actually went to high school in Savannah after my family moved from Chicago, and I also am a SCAD graduate. My preferred Facebook channel is Instagram. And Instagram and Facebook. I stay off Twitter, and I'm interested in learning how to automate social media for my company so I can free up some of my time. So I actually talked to Jen about relocating my company with the CETA initiative, and so I thought I'd join today and see what's going on and what I can learn. So thank you for putting this on.
Awesome, thank you. Catherine, how about you next? Unmute? Or do you wish to not participate and just listen in? Oh, I'm on desktop, no carrier. So Catherine doesn't have a mic, she's on a desktop. She works for Infinity, so that's a local tech company that does networking and technology services for businesses, and they're very active on Facebook. So we'll go with that. Okay, how about you, Liz?
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. So I am the program coordinator for the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center. And until recently, we had somebody working with me to kind of handle the social media for my office and for the Statesboro office. And unfortunately, she has left. And so guess who's getting to take that over? And so I could use a little help figuring out how to automate it to free up some time. And I think we pretty much mostly use Facebook. We do some Twitter and some Instagram, but Facebook seems to be the main platform for us.
That's pretty standard in Savannah, actually. Yeah. Well, unmute, or it's also okay if you don't have a mic. I don't, where'd the chat window go? Not in the chat. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to carry on. One of the things I have found is that, so we are going to talk about the channels in general. This is not like intro to social media, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about different social media channels. We're going to talk about tools to help you with content creation, tools to help you with content curation. I'm going to talk about the difference between the two of them and the blend that I use that seems to have worked for me in the past. We're going to talk about the sharing tools, so the Hootsuites and Buffers of the world, and then we're going to get into automation. I think of a lot of the content creation and curation and the sharing tools as a process by how can I get the most bang for buck using tools to make it look like I'm, when I lived in Atlanta, people said I was on social media 24/7. I was not. I spent about 10 minutes a day on social media. So it's how do you use tools to make it seem like you're in every conversation. Talking a little bit about channels to start with, it is important to think about where your audience is going to be, right? And so honestly, I don't know who's winning the race anymore. Instagram's really hot right now, but it is owned by Facebook, and there's people that are anti-Facebook. I'm seeing a lot of growth in LinkedIn personally right now, with a lot of, I got more birthday wishes on LinkedIn from friends than I did on Facebook this year for the first time ever. So kind of thinking about where you are, right? And you have to think about, for me, I have both organizations which seek to be influential, like the Creative Coast, like my old brand Startup Chicks and or ATDC that I represent. But I also, as an individual, seek to have influence over certain audiences. And so different places may be important. And when we start talking Facebook, somebody mentioned earlier, Instagram's owned by Facebook, right? But when we start thinking Facebook, you have both your personal, you have your brand pages, you have groups, and now you also have Messenger that you can automate messages through Messenger. You've got Instagram. I desperately want an Instagram groups. There is no such thing today, but that's something that's missing. There is LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has groups, right? As well as a publishing platform now. Snapchat, TikTok. I'm not active in those two channels. They skew younger, and specifically TikTok, being that it's a Chinese company, has some privacy issues that concern me about getting involved, as does with WhatsApp. And then I know you don't necessarily think of YouTube as a social media channel, but it really was kind of this first social video sharing platform. But there's new platforms popping up every day. I just heard of a platform for, like, some of them are getting politically, so like they'll either be far right or far left. There's no way you can keep up with it all. So the key is to think about where your audience is, and possibly think, at least to start with, how can I be active on two? And then maybe add a third, but that's probably it. If you go beyond that, it's you can't be all things to all people, right? So it's key to pick which one here. I'm really big on Twitter. Atlanta was one of the first cities to, like, the tech scene got on Twitter. And I have numerous friends that have literally at their first name on Twitter because they were so early on Twitter. So but Savannah seems much more Facebook centric, and Instagram is growing here. So that's kind of where we'll probably spend most of our time, is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and a little bit on LinkedIn. I do think LinkedIn is an interesting opportunity, especially for those that like to share a little bit longer form content. All right, so content creation. This is where you create the content, right? And this was a recent study done by Search Engine Journal. People, especially small businesses, say that they're getting the most bang for their buck through visuals. So 55% are planning on spending money on visuals, so image creation, images, photos, whatnot, and sharing visuals. 42% are spending money on video, 33% on articles and blog content, and you can see the rest. So this is really interesting because we're seeing this trend with the Creative Coast content that we're creating, that a strong visual lead to any blog post or Instagram really gets us a lot more bang for our buck than traditional long form content or even video. So we're spending a lot more time on visual stuff. But I'm gonna actually start with written, right? And I'm starting with written because you need to think about where is your home online, right? Oh, sorry, didn't mean to go forward. I don't always follow this rule as a thumb at the Creative Coast because it's become harder as we start to play with Instagram more and more. But I really want everything to live on the creativecoast.org website. So every piece of content we produce, its primary home should be thecreativecoast.org. And all of our social media really should drive people back to something that is on thecreativecoast.org, whether it's an event, whether it's an article about Savannah story, like a company in Savannah doing cool things. We've gotten a little bit away from this with some of the stuff that we've been doing, but for the most part, we're trying to push everybody back to our homepage because we're trying to establish ourselves really as a media brand, telling the story of the innovation economy in Savannah. So we want our WordPress website to be that home place. And so everything else we do links back, hopefully, to our website. And so that's why content creation in the written form becomes important, right? A nice header image, a 200 to 600 word blog post that may be on our WordPress site, but then is shared also on our LinkedIn page and through all of our social media channels that might be condensed into I have a plugin that I use that shares things on Medium as well without affecting search engine placement from a credit perspective. Two of the places, so if you don't want to go and create a WordPress or Wix blog for yourself, you can publish long form content just on your LinkedIn site. You could set up a Medium account or a Tumblr account or a Reddit account and share content there. Reddit is becoming a really great search engine-like thing. When I'm talking to entrepreneurs today and they're telling me what type of customer they're going after, you know, one of the things I'm like, okay, are there people having conversations about this on Reddit? And that tells me that there's probably a market there. So that's becoming an interesting place to watch for content. And then I do have one friend that does all of our long form content on Facebook. It actually drives me crazy, and I've tried to teach her differently, but it actually works for her. She's a writer. She runs writing workshops, and she does freelance content writing. And works with several brand agencies around it. And she posts all of her long form content on Facebook. Like we're talking like 600 word Facebook posts, and people love it. In her Facebook circle, people love it. It drives me crazy because that's not what Facebook is for. Facebook is for sharing, you know, pictures of my niece and nephew and my dog and my glass of wine with a sunset view, not a long form post about something, but it works for her. And so this is another example of you got to figure out what works for you and kind of customize it. I'm going to talk about visuals as well. So infographics and images. And all of these tools are available typically for your phone and for on your desktop. You can see, and it got cut here, but I use Canva. Well, I have all the Adobe suite of tools. I have Adobe Creative Commons. So I have Photoshop. I have every single Adobe tool I can use, and I'm very proficient at Photoshop. But I'll be honest, Kate Lance, who does the social media for the Creative Coast, and I use Canva almost exclusively. In fact, it's freemium. So it's a free version and it's a paid version. We have a paid version for the Creative Coast so that we can share different images that mostly she's created, or sometimes I've created through canva.com or the Canva app on our mobile devices, and we can quickly take a template. You can see some examples of templates for posters and Instagram posts. They have templates. You pick the template, you change the image a little bit, maybe you add a slogan, you add your logo, and boom, you've now got a pre-formatted Instagram post or video that or a Facebook header image. And so it just speeds it because they've already done the hard work to identify, oh, if I want a Facebook header, this is the size that image has to be, and you can quickly create something. Again, visuals right now are more important than video per consumers. That's what people are wanting to see, visuals. So even if you're writing long form content, include a header image. Videos. This is our new tool that we like for video creation. It's called Lumen 5. You can actually, it's got some AI in it. So actually you kind of give it an image, you give it some other stuff, and some of the stuff is automatically done for you. It's really cool. I have no idea how it works. We're playing around with it for the Creative Coast right now. We will probably be licensing it. This came from Lisa Kanda of LK Advisors. She's the one that recommended it. Video does not have to be high fidelity. We're living in a world where people want authenticity more than they want, highly produced content, right? So you can literally take your phone, flip it around, and video yourself talking about something and post it on Facebook, Instagram, and you'll be seen as authentic and real. And so I think, especially when, the Today Show is filming from home, right? So we're seeing everybody's home offices and things like that. So you don't, once upon a time, I thought video all had to be this highly produced stuff and pre-rolls and post-rolls and all that sort of stuff. Well, I think we'll get back there, but today I think authenticity is key. So can you make some quick little videos and get them out there? That's content creation. That's all I'm going to talk about, content creation. Those are some tools that we use, mostly Canva and Lumen 5. And then we're big on WordPress and then sharing those through. There's some plugins on WordPress that allow you to automate. Like once you write that post, it automatically shares on all your different social media channels. We do not do that. That's very intentional. We build social media schedules for a week. So if something new happens today and there's I write a blog post about it, we may not share it for a couple of days. In part because there's some algorithms related to Facebook and Instagram where how often you post impacts, in some cases, who sees your post. So I no longer post to the social media channels for the Creative Coast on the fly. I allow Kate manages all that through some tools. Our goal of the Creative Coast is to actually produce a piece of content every day. One piece of content that we produce every day, Monday through Friday. That's our goal. We don't always hit it. We're more likely to hit 3 days a week. But getting some sort of goal around consistency is important because the algorithms by what shows up in people's Facebook feeds and Instagram feeds is somewhat geared towards consistency. So what we've found is 3 to 5 posts a day, no more. And we want some to be created, some to be content that we've created, right? And then some to be curated content. I do, with all of our curated content for the start, for Creative Coast, we turn it into a blog post or a piece of content for the creativecoast.org, right? But we're curating other people's content in order to find story ideas, right? So content curation. This is how do I watch for topics that are of interest to me from other sources that I believe are credible, right? And so my favorite tool, you can see a screenshot of what my Feedly looks like. And you can see I have different feeds that I'm paying attention to, and I don't really pay attention to Atlanta anymore, but it was I never removed it. So I've got Atlanta, social media, startup chicks, and startups in general, right? And this is Feedly. I actually pay for this tool. I have it on every single device I own, my phone, my iPad, my computer, the desktop version, and I set this up so each topic of these, like Startup Chicks, you can see I opened Startup Chicks, so you can see what blogs I'm looking at for Startup Chicks. Glasshammer, Chic CEO, Forbes Woman, Ms. Tech, Project Eve, Women 2.0. Those are trusted sources for me that I know if they post something about a story, that it's going to be relevant for a startup chick and I might want to share it, right? So I set this up such that I know here's trusted sources for me, and they come into my Feedly. I also use Apple News a lot. That's why I put asterisks there. I'm also testing this new one called upcontent.com. I pay for Feedly. I probably will pay for upcontent.com. I'm still testing it. I do Google alerts and Twitter lists. So this is all me finding other articles that other people have written that are relevant to my audience that I can reshare to be seen as an expert, right? So, let's see. Right, so this is just content curation. This is just getting this queue of content that I might want to share. The next slide, I'll talk about sharing tools. So there's hundreds of tools, just like there's hundreds of social media platforms, there's hundreds of tools. My favorite, so we use Hootsuite for Creative Coast because it allows for multiple users to share and approve and things like that. So we use Hootsuite for Creative Coast, but I use Buffer. I use Buffer, I pay for Buffer, and I use it pretty much extensively. And what you see here on this screenshot that I took is that's the that little icon right there, like that looks like a little box. That's the Buffer app that integrates with Feedly. And so I can find an article in my feed through Feedly that I want to share, right? And so an article about what I'm well known for talking about investment and how to raise money for your startup. So an article about how startup funding might look different in a post-COVID world would be relevant to my audience. So I might want to share that, right? So I would click on the little Buffer icon, and then the next window would open up, and it would actually open up a pop-up and allow me to put it into my Buffer queue. And so this shows all different icons across the top. I guess they cut off the one that actually was Startup Chicks. I was going to share this with Startup Chicks Twitter. I've got Startup Chicks Twitter, Startup Chicks Facebook, and then a bunch of different other websites that I'm playing around with that I've built in different areas. And so yeah, I pay for Buffer. I can have up to 10 accounts. So it doesn't have to all be related to one thing. It could be me personally. It could be my brands that I'm associated with. And then I can share it, and I can change it. So I can change the description. I can change what image gets posted, and then I add to queue. And I've got Buffer set up to basically, I queue everything up. So I'm trying to queue up 3 to 5 articles a day on Buffer. And then they get posted to whatever channels I'm talking about, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. One of the reasons I like Buffer is because it does allow me to post to Instagram. Not all of them do. So Instagram is harder to find automation tools with, but Buffer allows me to do that. And so literally the way this works for me is, I used to be a Starbucks junkie. Every morning, I would go get in line at Starbucks. And while I was in line at Starbucks, I would glance through Feedly on my phone. I would find 3 articles that I wanted to share. I would buffer them, maybe tweak the headline, add an image, great article on post COVID-19 startup funding. Are they right or are they wrong? Question mark. Post, right? And I was done with my social media for the day. I'd take a picture of my dinner or a glass of wine or a sunset and add that to make it feel more authentic from Jen Bonnett. But I was basically done with social media with about 10 minutes in the morning of just while I was in line, queuing up a few articles that I wanted to share through Buffer, right? And they got scheduled and they got posted and I was done. Right, so that's why I like Buffer. Now we're gonna start talking a little bit more about automation, right? And automation is a little tricky. You need to be able to think a little bit like a coder to think about automation, but it's not hard. One of the key is only automate trusted sources. Because there's no way to say, queue this up and let me review it, right? If all of my automation works from the point of, if this happens, do this, right? And so we're gonna walk through 3 tools to do automation. One is ifttt.com. The next is Zapier. And then we're going to talk about ManyChat for Facebook Messenger bots, which I'm just starting to play with now. But IFTTT and Zapier I've used for years. IFTTT, if this, then that is what that stands for, is free. So that's awesome, right? So I've got here, if this, then that. So these are my applets that I have currently running. I have a bunch that are not running under if this, then that. And basically you can see if a new tweet by a specific user, then post that tweet as Jen Bonnett. So I'm sharing, so this is a great one because this is Savannah Economic Development Authority. This is Geekend, right? This is Creative Coast. This is INBIA and then Startup Chicks, right? So I trust CETA. I know the person that does social media for CETA. Geekend, Creative Coast are my other brand, right? Kate, anything Kate posts on behalf of the Creative Coast or Geekend, I want to automatically post as Jen Bonnett, right? And then INBIA is the International Business Incubator Association, right? So I trust them. If they're posting, I want to share it. And then of course my nonprofit Startup Chicks, right? And so I drilled into the one for Creative Coast here. So this is the detail, right? If this new user, if the title is whatever, if new tweet by specific user at Creative Coast, then post a tweet to at Jen Bonnett. I get notifications when it's active. It runs like great. It last ran July 15th. It's run 833 times in 2 years. And basically it's new tweet by a specific user. So if a new tweet comes in from the Creative Coast, that's what it's watching at Creative Coast, then Bennett posts a tweet from Jen Bonnett. Now, I used to retweet it, but Twitter doesn't allow that anymore. So now I post it. So I'm basically sharing, just sending it out there saying, hey, this is a great post by the Creative Coast, right? But the rules from the social media companies keep changing. So you do have to pay attention when you automate these things. Like if this one breaks, I'll get a notification. That's why I have it turned on to get notifications when this connection is active, is because if Twitter changes its rules and no longer allows this, I'll get a notification and I'll have to stop it, or I'll have to rewrite it to what now Twitter allows. So that's the pain. But basically, every time, if you go to Jen Bonnett on Twitter, you're gonna see probably every other post is actually me sharing a post automatically without me touching it, right? And this is how I achieve that. So, but it's really important to keep posting authentic content as yourself as well if you're going to automate, in order to make it feel authentic. So that's if this, then that. And it's literally ifttt.com, 3 T's. Zapier, I pay for, and I do more sophisticated integrations with this than I do with IFTTT. And a lot of this could be, I do around for this in particular, this example is I'm taking data from one platform to another without writing any code or doing anything differently. So in this particular instance, the Creative Coast's membership solution uses Stripe for payments, right? And so every time this first one, every time I get a new customer transaction, I want to either create or update my contact in HubSpot. So I'm using HubSpot CRM, which is a free CRM. We're using Stripe on our membership solution. I want HubSpot and Stripe to keep in touch as to how often we get paid, essentially. So if you're a new member of the Creative Coast and you join, you're going to get set up in HubSpot automatically, so I can track you in HubSpot, right? So that's one example. Another example here is I have an app that allows me to basically snap a picture of a business card and it automatically goes into HubSpot CRM. So these are more complex integrations than the IFTTs, right? The IFTT was just like, if this happens, then do this. This is actually, I have to actually do some translation around the name and the first name and last name to get it into the right format. So this is more of a, we would have called this back in the day, in my technology day, we would call this an ITL, which basically said that it's translating, doing some translation steps in between. And I've had these things running for years, and they just work. Again, I get notified if they break because sometimes rules change, but this allows my data, like I could set it up such that every time somebody attends signs up for an event in Eventbrite, it automatically goes into HubSpot, right? And so I'm just kind of pulling everything together using these tools, automation. And then the last example is the one I'm playing with right now. And so this is a bad example, bad screenshot because it's a little blurry, but I'm playing with ManyChat, and it's a freemium tool. So it means it's free for Facebook Messenger, but if you want to send text messages, you have to pay. I think the entry point is $10 a month. But basically, this is how people are doing those automated messages on Facebook. So every time somebody likes my page on Facebook, I can send them a quick message through Facebook Messenger. I can also get smarter, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how do I set up ManyChat with a set of bots that answer frequently asked questions. Like right now, the question I get most is, are you open to new members? Can people come into the Creative Coast offices? And the answer is no. Due to COVID-19, we've got a great set of members, around 25 people that have continued to pay our dues, even though they weren't using the space, especially for the first 2 months. And now that we're back open and they can use the space, I need them to feel safe. So I'm not open to new members right now, because I believe that right now, the tighter your quarantine circle is, and the more you know about the people in your quarantine circle, the better off you are for not getting sick. So I want our current existing members, those 25 people that have been paying us every month through this, to feel safe here. So I'd love to be able to answer that question through a Facebook chat. And that's what I'm working on setting up right now. I do not have it perfected, otherwise I'd be sharing it with you. But that's something that I'm looking into right now. And I think, you'll start to see a lot more people are doing that via text and whatnot. So that's something that I'm looking at, is how do I use these chat bots to automate some of my quick answers. My last thing is just tips, right? Be authentic, right? So if you're going to automate anything, you have to be active yourself, right? 1 or 2 posts a day. You have to find the time to do that. And then share. You can schedule the 3 posts. You can schedule posts that you created ahead of time on these platforms. But you need to be authentic, right? I think if you're just getting started, pick 2 channels, figure out where your audience is, pick 2 channels, and put in place a system or process that works for you. For each channel, I'm looking at 3 posts curated a day and really 1 created per day. And then I try and go in and comment on 3 to 5 other people's posts a day. That's it. I can do it in 10 minutes. Right? And then if you are automating, you're curating these things, or you're literally sharing other people's content through IFTTT or Zapier, only use trusted sources. You can also, in some of these tools like Buffer, you can set it up that you can share a post that you did, say, a month ago, right? So that you can, just because it's not brand new news doesn't mean that half of your audience hasn't seen it yet. So those are my thoughts. Questions, anyone? Let me open my chat window back up. So I'm working to get more involved. The Creative Coast focus, when Kate first joined, we focused on Instagram. Now we're focusing a little bit more on LinkedIn. Continuing Instagram, but adding LinkedIn. So we were Facebook and Instagram. I've always been Twitter, so I kind of cover that for the Creative Coast. Now our focus is LinkedIn and whether or not we could use chatbots in a meaningful way. But it's constantly changing. You have to look at it. You have to look for new tools all the time, because there might be a better tool. Like I said, I use Buffer more than anything else, because it also allows me to share on Instagram, which a lot of the tools don't do Instagram. Liz, if you're looking to hire somebody part-time to help you, Kate is taking on new clients. She's only part-time with me. So, and she'd get it because, we do the same thing, similar things. There's overlap in what we do. So I think she could kind of step right in if you wanted help. Reach out to me. We'll make it happen. If there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and stop recording. Maybe I'll just stop recording while we get to that. Boom.